Hello, and welcome to today's webinar. The new battle cry is transformation is automation. Before we get started, I'd like to share with you a few logistics about today's call. First off, all attendees are in listen-only mode. If you would like to ask a question, you may do so by submitting it via the question chat box, and we will save it for the Q&A portion of the webinar. So with that, let's jump in. So I'd like to first introduce our speakers today. First off, we have Jim Lundy, who is the CEO and lead analyst of Aragon Research. We have Josh Waldo, the VP of Channel and Product Marketing at Nintex. And Mike Fitzmaurice, also known as Fitz, who is the VP of Workflow Technology at Nintex. So we have a lot to cover, so I'm going to pass it off to Jim.
Thank you very much, Yana. So the title of our webinar today is The New Battle Cry in Transformation is Automation, and we're going to really hit you hard with some new ideas, some new ways that technology is changing, and hopefully when you leave today you'll have some big ideas on where you should get started and how you might be able to leverage our friends at Nintex. So one of the things I'll just say is that there's an avalanche of things that are happening in the market, in the world, and in the market, and we're at I guess a point of no return. Everybody's talking about transformation, but yet the reality of today is most enterprises still are stuck with legacy processes. Many of them are paper-based, and so while my premise is that the future of work is automated, you could also make a statement today, and I did this in a talk I gave last week, that the future of work is messy. And the objective for our webinar today is to show you a pathway forward where it's not as messy and where you can actually make it more automated and get to those faster outcomes that the business leaders are demanding. So we've got three key things I want to hit today, some key trends that are driving digital transformation, talk about this category that we're going to define called workflow and content automation, and Josh and Mike are going to help with that as we go through the rest of the webinar, and then talk a little bit about how you might actually use it to gain an advantage in the market. I'm based here in Silicon Valley, and we're out talking with clients almost every single day. And so while digital is, quote, the new normal, it's the thing being discussed, there's a lot of different definitions of digital, but I've got a couple here, digital natives, companies that really started their business really kind of being focused on digital, Uber, Tesla, and another one that's talked about a lot here in the Valley is our friends at Netflix. And we're going to talk about some of these digital native apps and what they are, what they mean, but they're not alone. Other companies like General Electric, Amazon are also really focused on becoming full digital companies. GE has a GE digital division. They're actually buying up companies in Silicon Valley as fast as they can. They bought service company last week. They've bought a machine learning company a few weeks before that. Amazon is prototyping and testing drones here in the U.S. and in many other countries for package delivery. But you may not remember that actually Amazon started life out shipping books to people. And now they're trying to get you to read your books online on a Kindle, which many people are doing. But the big conversation that we get calls about is we don't want to be Uberized. And there's a lot of implications in that, but if we actually go to the next slide, I'm going to talk about what a digital app really is. Those calls that we're getting where either a chief digital officer or a CIO is basically fretting and worried because they've seen what's happened to an industry like transportation, such as taxis and hired limousines, and they're saying, wow, we've seen many of these companies go out of business, they didn't see it coming, and we're adamant we don't want that to happen to us. But if you actually break down the anatomy of what the Uber app does, it's doing many, many things all at the same time that used to be done in sequential order, meaning that you had to hail a cab, you had to get in the cab, you had to tell the cab driver where you're going, he started the meter, and you knew what the final price was when you got to your destination. Today, you know what you're going to pay before even the car shows up to get you, because they've got a pricing engine built into it, they've got a calculation engine, they've got a demand engine, they can change pricing on the fly based on demand and supply, and it's all interactive. So do you think that's a possibility that could happen to you in your industry? I'd be willing to bet you that most of you would raise your hand. So these new predictive digital apps that may run on a smartphone, may run on a laptop, this is really the playbook that companies are trying to figure out. We're going to dive into a small section of that relative to specifically around content and workflow, but this ties into the overall big picture of transformation, because sometimes if you start small, with small wins, you can scale up to some of the bigger, larger business models that impact the entire company. So we're here to tee up a conversation today on digital transformation that we're calling the rise of workflow and content automation. It's really about consolidating two different business categories together, the traditional BPM/workflow and this other area that is known as customer communications management. If you're not in IT, you may have heard of things just like DocGen or document generation, but they're two distinct categories. They work independently. Sometimes you can manually make them work together, but it's a lot of extra work. And so with workflow and content automation as a business application category, we're kind of smashing these two legacy areas together. Why? Well, first of all, it is a business app. You can do more with less because it's all integrated. You can actually have touch points outside of the enterprise. But the biggest thing is it's going to get you to what your business leaders want, which is I need it more automated, I need things to move faster, I need to do it more electronically, and I need to be able to have my business people do it, not just IT. So we actually step back and say, what does it all mean? This is the foundation for what we call a digital business platform. The idea of a set of tools that integrated together allow you to automate parts of your business faster than you ever could before. So we think, as far as our strategic imperative, that WCA will consolidate most of the BPM and CCM markets into this new category that we're referring to as an acronym of WCA. Why is this happening? Well, it couldn't have happened if we didn't have the ability to connect applications across different clouds. A couple years ago, this was hard to do. You sometimes had to actually have your application running in the same cloud because it wasn't connected with the other ones. Now it's all opened up. For example, we have a CRM application. We might have 5 different third-party apps running, but they don't run in the same cloud as our CRM app. And so this allows you to take back control from your provider. It gives you the ability to control the pace and the amount of innovation. So you're essentially customizing, for example, in this case CRM. It prevents lock-in because you might be able to say, I'm going to switch providers. And the big thing is also allows for this app-to-app integration. So WCA, when we talk about this as we go through the rest of the webinar, is going to enable you to do many of these document-centric things much, much faster across these different clouds. One of the ways this is going to happen is we think you're going to see an increasing amount of computers assisting humans through what we call digital assistants. There's going to be many different types of digital assistants. Today, if we look at 2015, 2016, as we head into next year, we're really at a voice search, very fundamental. As we go out towards 2021, you'll see fully capable digital assistants that can actually initiate and complete actions. And we're talking foundational stuff right now, but digital assistants are coming. And we think that chatbots will come online next year that will basically be able to help you, like, would you like me to get you your onboarding package or things like that. But we do think in the area of digital transaction management and workflow and content automation that some of these things will actually even help the person designing the new application to actually design it and make it happen faster. So again, the bottom line is the computers and humans will work closer together than they ever have. And again, we're setting the stage for really what becomes humans being able to focus on more of the knowledge-intensive work and the computers actually doing some of the basic work so we don't have to push as many buttons or manually route things around or customize documents, which, for most of us, as we know, as knowledge workers, we spend a large chunk of our day either searching for information or actually composing information. And with WCA, you're going to be able to automate this to a large extent so you can focus on, again, the more intensive things where human compute power is really needed. So one of the things that's been tossed around, it's probably more in manufacturing, is the idea of Industry 4.0. And, for the fourth industrial revolution is coming into more of the factory settings, but we are here to make an argument. It's also coming into the workplace. And again, it's really, digital business platforms are the term that we're using, but really the idea of everything becomes automated to the extent that it can be, And we're talking about different degrees of automation. There'll be fundamental basic things, and there'll be more advanced things. And there'll be more things like voice commands and natural language processing to allow these things to happen. Still very early days, but some of the things that happen in factories today, such as a robot that's moving a car around an assembly-based factory, negotiating with the paint booth to determine if the paint booth is up to the quality standards for this particular car. You're going to have things like that happening in the workplace where different applications will actually not only interact, which they will do today, but down the road they'll actually be able to negotiate through agent technology. So again, it's a very beginning, but like I said at the beginning of the webinar, we're at a crossroads here. We're not going to be going back. The business side of the equation is, I need this faster, and one of the answers is starting with this winning platform of workflow and content automation. So a little bit of an eye chart here. This is our technology arc for digital transaction management and content management. It basically tracks emerging, adopting, and mature technologies as they get introduced and start to be deployed in an enterprise. I did add workflow and content automation on the lower left, right next to deep learning. We see this area as one of, that's an entry that you'll actually see in the 2017 tech arc that comes out in January, but there's a number of line items here. Automated document generation, you can see there, full digital transaction management. So the business people that call us want to talk about all the emerging stuff. In many cases, we end up talking to IT about some of the legacy areas like enterprise content management, where they're simply trying to do a cost down. They're a cost center, they need to save money, they might have up to 15 repositories. How do we consolidate those so we can save some money? Where on the flip side, the business side is saying, how do I automate so that I can make more money? And that's a fundamental proposition. Technology is a weapon. And so a lot of people are using these tech arcs to figure out, like, wait a minute, those people are using that, we need to add that too. And so our fundamental premise is WCA is a winning way to move faster as we look to automate these fundamental business applications that are content-centric. So just to review, workflow and content automation is a new category, again, combining BPM workflow and CCM/DocGen into one integrated platform. And again, you're going to be seeing a demo here in just a little while from our friends at Nintex. But really the bigger difference is, again, these areas started out as technology stacks, building blocks that really IT staff and programmers had to really kind of figure out and plug it all together. And what we're saying is, well, we're taking two of those and they're being smashed together because it's almost a no-brainer. If I got a piece of content that I can create automatically, but then I need to do stuff with it, and should I have to wait for the human to do it, or can the machines actually do that automatically based on rules? And again, that's really the beginning of a fully automated digital business process. So we see big things in this area. It's still brand new, but to be honest with you, we do think that, particularly in the CCM area, that a lot of the vendors there are going to wake up and realize that it's not good enough just to generate a document automatically and let it sit there. You really have to allow action to take place on it. So another way to look at this real quick is when we talk to business leaders, they only really want to talk about the output. And are we too analog? And our answer is, do you have a lot of paper? Yes? Yeah, then you're too analog. On the IT side, though, it's really about making these different gears of these things work together. But really, to be real honest, the expectation is just like when you go to purchase a car, you generally want the car to go fast. Sometimes you don't care how it does that. And again, that's really the lens that the business leaders are looking at. And so while paper is kind of a boring topic, it's not boring anymore because it's slowing down the business, and the business really can't afford that. So we think WCA is going to affect many different aspects of the technology arena in the digital workplace. Literally, human capital management, traditional content management, and office suites, because they'll be interacting with both CRM and ERP, where a lot of the data resides and a lot of the specific processes involved with either manufacturing or sales and support. And when you actually look at the whole DTM area, we've estimated that it's a $30 billion market because there's still so much paper in an enterprise that is tied to transactions. So when you actually look at the amount of spending that's gone on in this area, it's never been quantified. So again, what it means for you is you're going to have to recompile apps. You're going to have to focus on automation. You're going to probably want to leverage WCA because, again, it's simplifying and making the process of making these automation projects go faster. And then the last thing is, Nintex helped to figure out this, and they're going to talk to you about how they're doing it. But, this is a new category, and Nintex is one of the pioneers in this area. So this is a flyby on digital business platforms. This is a business architecture that Aragon published a research note on back in May. But really the idea here is that when you actually talk about automation, and we're going to give some examples, you'll see a demo, but it's touching a number of different areas. Again, we talked about process, we talked about apps. We didn't talk about machines and sensors, but those will be data sources and in some cases recipients, because machines and humans will be involved with some of these processes going forward. And again, it'll get smarter with digital assistance and machine learning. And again, this is how this space will evolve. And, we're diving into some very specific parts of the digital business, but this is just to let you know that it is larger and there's a lot of moving parts. But generally, you got to start somewhere, and the pieces that touch how the business runs through contracts and documents is really the low-hanging fruit in any enterprise. So this is our Aragon Research Globe for Digital Transaction Management 2016. This is one of our first reports we've done where we, last year in 2015, we actually looked at vendors and what they were doing with e-signature. In a year, the market's moved pretty intensely more towards document automation, or what we're calling as WCA. And again, we wrote about that in the report. Nintex, you can see, is a strong innovator. And again, more customers that we talk to are looking for not just the ability to sign something and replace paper, but to fully automate the process. So when you look at this advanced DTM capability that we're calling workflow and content automation, really, there's people that are competing with this, but they don't always have the same things. But what we see is more and more buyers are looking for the kinds of capabilities that people like Nintex have. So automation is a major theme for 2017. On the left-hand part of this slide is a simple kind of example of how this might work. So I could be a human and touch my finger to a screen. It might be a button in a CRM application, or I could actually be a machine, a computer application, or a bot that might do the same thing based on some parameters or things that happened in the life cycle of a process. That might kick off and generate a new contract or maybe a new onboarding package. You can see some applications on the right that then might be routed to specific people inside or outside of the organization for either approvals or reviews or whatever part of the process it's in. There was a revolutionary app that kind of really pushed this whole automation idea that happened earlier this year during the Super Bowl of 2016, the beginning of this year, where they showed a commercial for this application called Rocket Mortgage. And the only thing that was fascinating about that was you could do it on your phone, and you could actually get a consumer mortgage in less than 10 minutes from your phone. That's created shockwaves in the industry and really has been a catalyst to help create this category of workflow and content automation, because now everybody wants to say, wait a minute, they can do it, we can do it, we can move faster, we can sell more, we can do more of these things, whether, again, it's hiring more people faster, getting them into a work motion by onboarding them, whether it's being able to do our contracting faster, all kinds of different document-based processes that today are still very manual. Even if they're signing them online, they're still very manual. So again, this is the challenge for you, is what are those things and how do we get started? And again, a small prediction from yours truly, we think that smart documents will be able to create and route themselves. We think WCA is going to power this. And again, if you put it to work sooner than the other people you compete with, you're going to win. Now the question is, how do you do that? And we've got a small way that we think that is worth looking at. And the next two slides cover this. So the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to get a lot of people that, maybe you get an easy win with the first one, and then everybody's going to say, wow, we need to have that too. Now, there's two things that will happen. One, the business people will figure out, like, hey, I can have a business analyst work on this, which I think in the case of Nintex is probably true. Or two, you're just going to have an avalanche of IT where you might have 25 different content projects that you need automated. You're going to have to prioritize. So this matrix allows you to look at scoring applications for automation by impact and feasibility. So obviously high impact, easy to do means that's a winner. You should prioritize WCA Project A. Low impact, hard to do means that those things fall to the bottom of the list. So again, this is a way to start looking at this. You may not need this right now, but when the demand kicks in, you're going to have basically people pushing a popularity contest like, I'm really important, so you need to do mine first. And you really have to step back and say, what's the business impact? Once you do that, you need to look at the life cycle because you still have to go and design these and figure it out. And again, look at the operating principles you have and the new procedures you're going to put in place. You need to test and do what-ifs because, again, it might not be a perfect automation. You may have to experiment a little bit. Once you've got it started, if you're going to do a launch and learn and just get it out there, mimicking the current process but trying to automate further, then you can identify those bottlenecks, optimize, and then keep moving. But again, the idea is that some of these situations, it's not like it's a one and done. You want to keep optimizing because there's going to be new features, new capabilities, and your users are going to say, wait a minute, we could probably skip this step if we did ABC. So again, something to think about once you've decided you've maybe selected an offering, you're ready to go, and looking at this iterative process, which is, again, kind of like an agile WCA process. And that's kind of it. So we, again, talk about the paper era is definitely coming to an end. We've identified workflow and content automation, WCA, as a key change agent or catalyst. Look to identify those high payback projects to start with for WCA. And again, when you come back next Monday after you've had the weekend off, you want to make sure that you start to build your plan for 2017. And it's all about change. And with that, I think we're going to dive into a discussion with Josh.
Sounds good.
So, Josh, you've been doing a lot at Nintex. You guys aren't new in the market, but I do know you made a couple of one particular acquisition I'm thinking about in particular where you're starting to transform what you're doing in this whole area of WCA. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things you've been doing at Nintex and how you're changing and evolving?
Yeah, you bet, Jim. No problem. Yeah, so just quick summary on the business. So we've been helping over 7,000 customers, and we have roughly 1,600 partners globally in over 90 countries. We've really been helping these customers and the partners that service the customers on their workflow automation needs. We've been doing that for about 10 years on SharePoint and Office 365 historically. This represents hundreds of millions of workflows that are executing every single year, and this really is helping customers and partners who are helping our customers digitally transform how work gets done. So in the last few years, we've had a number of customers and partners asking us for similar capabilities in the cloud, and really across a lot of the SaaS systems that they're using today or starting to use today. So if you think of SaaS systems such as Salesforce.com, Dropbox, Box, ShareFile, things like NetSuite, Dynamics, the whole Dynamics suite, the list just goes on and on. And really the needs are very similar to what we've experienced. It's all around reducing manual work. It's around enabling high-performing teams. The high-value stuff is really around improving the customer experience. And they want to be able to do this without writing a lot of code. They want to be able to get to market really, really fast with these solutions. So as a result, we released the Nintex Workflow Cloud just recently. This is a new core capability within the Nintex Workflow platform, and it delivers workflow automation, really extending beyond only the SharePoint environment, and really cuts across any system of record or content source, as well as the utilization of other SaaS-based utilities that are out there. The ISV that we purchased that you were referring to earlier is a company called DrawLoop. We bought them about a year and a half ago, and they were in the top 10 paid apps within the Salesforce App Exchange, and we continue to still enjoy that. And what DrawLoop delivers is high-end automated document generation capabilities. That's now available in the Nintex workflow platform, as we've ported many of those capabilities into our core technology, as well as continued to focus on automated document generation moving forward. So additionally, some examples of what we've done is automating the contract management process, if you want to think of kind of how all this comes together. And you can really do that end-to-end with Nintex as an example. So you can pull data from your CRM automatically. You can populate document templates within our document generation capability. And then when you want to do something with those documents, you can have those routed, approved, distributed, and then e-signed by the e-sign vendor of choice. You want to store those documents, you can store those at SharePoint, but you can store those in Dropbox, Box, Google Drive, OneDrive, or essentially wherever you work. So essentially we're trying to become the one-stop shop for your workflow and content automation needs.
Oh, that's awesome. So again, that whole new Nintex cloud platform, what are the customers that you're working with doing with this?
Yeah, so if we go to the next slide here, these are the top 5 processes across 6 departments that we've seen essentially over the last 10 years that we've tabulated, and there are many more. As you can see, they kind of cut across departmental needs and really across industries. And as they cut across industries, they take on a life of their own. And our customers and partners are really shaping these processes ongoing. They also span from the front office, from a sales and marketing perspective, to the back office if you think about finance and administration. So I mentioned the contract management process as an example of how DocGen and workflow all kind of come together. Additionally, in HR, as an example, we see employee onboarding quite a bit. And if you think about that, it's a very manual and fairly unstructured process. And if you think about all the things that need to happen when you're onboarding an employee, or in some cases when you're offboarding an employee, and the list of steps that are required, such as approvals and actions and automated provisioning of accounts, the needs become very, very vast and many times very sophisticated. And that's why we have a lot of advanced functionality in the workflow engine, additional capabilities in the platform, such as document generation, the mobile applications piece, and the workflow analytics. Compliance is another area we see a lot, and this cuts across a multitude of these scenarios. Our partners spend a lot of time in the area of compliance, really helping lines of business around the business rules, the regulations, the various interdependencies that you see across organizational lines. And I guess the good news is that the technology now is the easy part of the equation, and most of the time in these projects are really around the business rules, getting alignment across multiple teams to really nail down the requirements. It's also important to note that we support a lot of niche and kind of unique, sophisticated use cases. So, for example, we have a large pharmaceutical company that uses Nintex for governmental drug trial approvals. So it's really a broad spectrum, and it ranges from the repeatable or relatively simple use cases to the specific and fairly sophisticated ones.
Okay, that makes sense, Josh. The other thing that, obviously, again, you guys have been at this for a while, and customers are becoming more demanding. How are their needs evolved over time?
Yeah, so with the initial release of the Nintex Workflow Cloud, and I'll throw another visual up here for you to give you an idea, we're currently seeing a lot of use cases that are closer to the front office. And I'll kind of show you our own operations for a second. So here's a quick snapshot of our own sales operations vice president, Charlie Dordovich. Charlie came to us recently as our new sales ops VP. And he's really all about efficiency and getting to, essentially what he says, getting to value quickly. Now, he had no prior experience designing workflows with Nintex, as he's relatively new to the company. And he automated, and you can see this is the number one item there, he automated what we call the global account matrix in only 5 hours within our CRM system using the Nintex Workflow Cloud, our CRM system, Salesforce.com. So the global account matrix was a 9-page Word document, and essentially a sales ops person would use it to figure out who would approve a custom or non-standard deal. Now, this was an incredibly time-intensive and manual process. It's now automated. Now, Charlie's alternative for this would have been a 2 to 3 week project in his estimation, requiring an Apex developer in Salesforce.com. He most likely would have hired a third-party consultant to do this back-end custom coding. So for Charlie and the business, it's pretty powerful stuff because he's essentially saving 1.5 people in the process as he's automated this process, and he's redeploying their time to renewals, which really drives more revenue and better customer experiences. So he says he's told me this stuff is super low-hanging fruit. It's great for the business, and as a result, he's identified 7 more projects, which I've shown here on this screen, which will continue to save the business time and increase our bottom line.
Well, Josh, I got to say, just with the 2, and I just want to, clarify that you're talking about 1.5 people that you're saving with just 2 of those, and he's already identified those other ones, and that's no small feat in sales operations. So that's sounds to me like that's a pretty repeatable opportunity relative to the rest of the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and the other piece of it is that this isn't about gaining efficiency to eliminate people's jobs. This is about gaining efficiency to gain a competitive advantage. I think you were touching on that earlier, Jim, and when you were talking about digital transformation. And, Nintex operates like a lot of businesses. We are challenged with the need to do more with less, and that really equates to engaging with employees to drive a much more effective workforce. It's around constantly optimizing the customer, and in our case, a lot of times the partner experience. And that means we're laser focused on outcomes such as, customer and partner satisfaction, customer activation and retention, and then revenue, and especially in the world of cloud, recurring utilization of our technology. One of the phrases that we stole from one of our really large customers in manufacturing is the term, just Nintex it. And so we stole that phrase from them, and every time that we do it and we follow through in our own business, we're able to get people out of the weeds and give them a more rewarding experience at work. And we're able to increase our competitive advantage as a result.
Yeah, that just Nintex it term means a whole lot more than just build a workflow with Nintex. It actually means just do it yourself, not just to save time and to get it started more quickly. It also means you know the problem better than anyone else. You probably know how to best solve it better than anyone else, as long as you've got the right tools in front of you. So it means a culture change. It means solve some problems from yourself at a certain point, bring in extra expertise if you need it, or go to a library of things experts have created and just reuse them like Lego bricks. But it does mean self-sufficiency and adaptability and agility. And those people whose time's been saved, trust me, there's more work for them to do.
Absolutely.
Would you guys like to see what Nintexing it kind of looks like and what WCM looks like?
Sounds good.
I'd love to see what WCA looks like, yeah.
Okay, well, then I'd say it's demo time. And if you guys don't mind, I'm going to take control of the screen. Well, there are basically 3 points I want to get across. I'm doing a demo here. We're not really doing this isn't a class, so no need to take notes. Just see that it's really happening. And if you'd like more information, go to nintex.com. You can see a ton of information on how our stuff works, and you can even ask to have a custom demo delivered for you using a situation that you ask us for. But I want you to feel that this is real, because it totally is. And what I'm going to show you is the fact that in a lot of companies, they think about the workflow they might have in the box. Like Salesforce has got a couple of different automation features in it, but they typically are focused on automating Salesforce. And over here I've got a SharePoint online site in Office 365. And there are a couple of different workflow options over here as well, but again, they're usually focused on automating Office 365 or SharePoint Server. The thing is, the really interesting processes, the ones that make a difference, the ones that usually make people want to turn to custom development even though they don't really need to, They're the ones that span boundaries. I will typically work with people to create a proposal here that's meant to respond to an opportunity here. And it might involve accounts happening inside of our ERP system, and this might be the result of a lead generated by a marketing campaign. There is stuff all over the place that can make this so much more effective if we think about workflow as something that connects together everything we've got. Our apps, our data, our knowledge, our content, our people. So how about we go and take a look at a Nintex workflow that I designed. This took about a half hour to put together, and I'll make a modification to it in a minute, and we'll come back and improve it later. But the process is very, very straightforward. The workflow has a beginning, and it has an end. And all that I have been doing is dragging and dropping things into position. Like, for example, this is what we do when an opportunity has been flagged as ready to close. And at the end of this, we're going to close the opportunity and mark it as a done deal. That's what Update a Record is doing here. It's talking to Salesforce. You know what I think we should also do? You guys, have you ever bought something from someone, and once you bought it, you still kept getting ads sent to your email box from the same company for the same thing, and you kind of want to get mad at them and say, guys, you made the sale, stop selling. I have this happen to me with some frequency. So what I would really like to do is update the lead so that we stop harassing that person, and we have connectors to Marketo. Clever email campaign content wasn't a harassment back when we were giving them information on something they wanted, but they bought it. Why should we keep selling them that? We may keep them informed in other things we're doing. We're big believers in cross-sell, upsell, but let's stop selling them the product they bought. So we're going to update this lead so that we don't have to keep selling them on the product they've already bought. We'll sell them other things later. But this involves reacting to a change in a Salesforce opportunity to ready for negotiation, ready to receive proposal. So we'll retrieve that record, and we'll get all the information about the opportunity and create a document for it. And we'll dynamically generate that content. We'll ask the customer to review it, propose any changes. If they've got changes requested, we'll route it by, actually this belongs over here. There. That's how easy it is to make a change. If they've got changes requested, we'll then hand them to a contract specialist to go ahead and make the requested changes and then route those around for approval. And then when it's all done, we'll update the record, we'll update the lead, and we're done. It's not, this is a very real, right in front of your fingertips, very feedback-intensive process, and it's not painful at all. And what it's like to use this, it's kind of like this. Let's say, I like to start with a mobile UI just because so many of us do so much work in mobile devices. Trust me, we could actually go back to the browser and make a change in Salesforce, but how about we come over here and we go to opportunities, and I look at all of the opportunities I've got and maybe react to one of them. Now, I can do this, but it also assumes that I may have a large number of processes that I participate in all day long. And I don't necessarily want to open up Salesforce, find the thing I want to make a change to, and then edit data on it. You know what I might want to do is something really more streamlined than that. So how about I go to the Nintex mobile app up there. And this is every kind of task or process that I can start. I can do safety inspections. I can do things with human resources. I don't care about those at the moment. I care about the stuff down at the bottom by sales. And that first item there says proposal requests. And I'm going to go to this particular customer, and this is going to be ongoing inspections. There. Let's start that on the 18th, and we'll run it for 365 days, and I'll submit that. Now, notice down here that there was an indicator that it was in the outbox, and then we asynchronously sent it back to the workflow process. If we were offline, this would all still work. If I needed to know where I was, we do geolocation, we do mapping, we do all kinds of things. This form could have been very detailed with a lot of annotated photos and voice recordings and so on and so forth. But the main thing I want to get across is you are seeing a list of everything that I've got the opportunity to request. It's right in front of me. It's my work at my fingertips. In fact, this has our branding on it, but it's totally okay for it to have your branding on it. So this is a branded custom client with a different color scheme and a specific subset of forms that can be submitted to do different kinds of activity. And there's also the option to look at all the tasks that are pending that have been assigned to me that are waiting for me to complete. So this is what it's like to actually interact with processes. Basically start things, check to see where they are. Oh, and you might get tapped on the shoulder and asked to complete some tasks. It's really straightforward. We can surface this stuff inside of the software you already use, but if you'd like a nice mobile client, we absolutely provide one. Now, how about we work with both the reviewer and the contract specialist using email, what they use all the time. So I'm going to come over here to the customer's mailbox, and here is indeed a request to review the following proposal. All right, let's check it out. I'll click on it. And again, at this point, we're out of Salesforce. We're using, I could have done this in Box. I could have done this in Dropbox for Business, I suppose. At this point, I'm using SharePoint Online in Office 365. I'm quite fond of it. And I'm looking at a contract. And by the way, the contract has been custom designed. There's that's my company name. That's the due date we talked about. That's the contract period. This is nice. I like this. This is my document. It's been generated by the workflow process. And I am going to click here on comments and just make one very quick comment, which is, I need to select something first. How about, let's do that. Add clause to let me extend it by 1 year at same price. All right, I do that and I let go of it and I'm done. Now let's go over to the contract specialist who now has this request asking her to open this up and apply those changes. So I see that there's a comment here, so why don't I edit this document, and I'll edit it here in my browser. And I notice that the comment here, okay, yep, I see your instruction. Client may renew for an additional 365 days at the same price at client's discretion. Okay, I have done what you asked and we are good to go. And that's all it took, really. We have combined a lot of, shall we say, traditional transactional work with collaboration work. And we've done a nice job of it, too. You want to see how easy it was to create that document? Check this out. I'll go to a different workflow because I've actually been a little bit more elaborate here. This is the generate document workflow activity. And in here I've got, I'm going to combine two templates. One is an Excel spreadsheet that shows all of our work as to where our numbers come from. And this is a Word document. Now I'm going to open this and show you just how painless it is to take any Office document you'd like and insert some codes into it. If you've ever done a mail merge, you can do this. It's pretty painless. This is the Nintex document tagger, and this contains everything about the workflow process at the moment. So the item the proposal that we're circulating around, the details about the customer opportunity, anything we've been calculating in the workflow itself. So let's see, there's when it was created. There, the identity of the editor. I definitely want to put that right here. There. tag has been inserted, and if for some reason you really want to type stuff in manually, you can. There's nothing fancy to this. I didn't need to insert special codes. It's a special text that we will recognize. It's actually easier than doing a mail merge. And then, like I said, this is going to get combined with an Excel spreadsheet to create an entire package of document content, which I can leave in their native Word format and Excel format or turn into a PDF file, so everybody wins. And that's basically what it's like to work with a process like that. What you've seen are two things. One, the interesting processes involve multiple moving parts, and the second thing is the content isn't just a static payload that we route around. The content is actually part of the process. We're dynamically creating it from data, from user input, and so on. The last thing I want to show you is it's not necessary for us to do a lot of deep analysis and get it right the very first time. Part of Nintexing it is giving you the freedom to improve it on the fly as you realize there are other things you should do. So we want to reward innovation. So one of the things we realized is we could stop selling them the product they bought. I did that just a moment ago. Let's also get the contract digitally signed as part of the process by talking directly to DocuSign. It's a painless, easy thing. In fact, we know our environments really well. When we talk to DocuSign, we know that if we send in a document, it's going to come back either completed or declined by the signer or voided by the administrator. And so we put in front of you the three things that could happen so you can decide what happens here or here or here. We will guide you through building the process. That's how committed to being easy we are. And with that, I'm going to hand presenter privileges back to you, because if I'm not mistaken, we've got some Q&A that we'd like to do, right?
Yes, and for those on the phone, go ahead and enter your questions in the chat box or directly in the question box, and we can answer those.
Also important to note that if you want to get more information about Nintex and our offerings, you can go to the URL that's located in the first part of it, and if you want to read the full research paper on a digital workflow and content automation, you can go to nintex.com/Aragon.
If you want to get started with workflow and content automation, where should we start? Jim, you coined the term in the category. You feel like taking that one?
Sure thing, Fitz. So I guess a couple things. One is, you really kind of need to do an inventory of both your mission-critical document-centric processes. And again, a lot of times people don't do that. And so, because if you don't do that, then you don't know what they are, how many times they're being run and used, how many proposals do you send out to prospects? Is the proposal creation process automated? Is the contract process automated? Is employee onboarding automated? Is partner onboarding automated if you sell through resellers? But you have to do that and then do that assessment of, what are the ones that have the highest impact? How much repetition is there? Meaning that if there's high impact and a lot of repetition, means you can really significantly have an impact on how quickly those things can get done. And then you kind of have to deploy and start using the particular offering. Probably, obviously, I'm sure the Nintex people would like you to try theirs out, but they're one of the leading providers. And then again, as we went through the one slide where you iterate, you do some what ifs, and then you launch it, and then you iterate some more before you finally harden it. So that would be my take: is start with the assessment and then jump in.
Cool. I see another question here. Does the platform support on-site deployment without SharePoint? That's probably two questions in one. That's okay. We can answer them one at a time. We actually have Nintex for SharePoint Server, Nintex for Office 365, and the new Nintex Workflow Cloud, which actually, Nintex Workflow Cloud is extra fun in the sense that it loves everybody. It loves SharePoint, it loves Salesforce, it loves a wide variety of different platforms, but you can also just go to a browser and start building a workflow immediately without knowing a lot of details about SharePoint or a lot of details about Salesforce. You need to know a little bit about workflow and you can get started immediately. There's much less of a learning curve. So it works with SharePoint, but it doesn't require it. Now, I think the second part of your question was on-site. And I would say on-site, the SharePoint Server product is able to talk to Nintex Workflow Cloud and have the process run in a distributed fashion. So have some of the workflow run on premises inside of SharePoint, have it pass a request to a cloud-hosted workflow to do some more work, and then come back. Our roadmap includes allowing Workflow Cloud to reach in a secure way into your on-premises environment at some point in the future. Don't expect to see that in the next several months, mind you. It'll happen at some point, but we're not able to forecast when that will happen at this time. It's focused on being a fantastic cloud service first. Oh, let's see. More questions. Okay, the Nintex engine you've previously known was attached to SharePoint. Setup always looked like a big deal. What time and effort is needed to get started these days? Guy or Guy, that's a fantastic question, and the answer is fill out a form to sign up for a trial tenancy, and you are immediately taken to the Nintex Workflow Cloud screen. You click New Workflow, and you start. There's plenty of guidance content as well to help you get started, but there's nothing to deploy. You just start working. That's one of the biggest advantages of Nintex Workflow Cloud. There's nothing you have to do to the target environment that you're working with. You just start working. Does Nintex support a hybrid cloud and on-premises model? We are big believers in distributed processes, so it is entirely possible for an on-premises SharePoint-hosted Nintex workflow to communicate back and forth with a cloud-hosted Nintex workflow. In fact, we have customers doing it today. I see a question about the licensing structure. Is it per workflow, per user, or what? Josh, that might be a good one for you to take.
You bet. So we have a subscription model for Nintex where we sell by the workflow band. So depending on your needs and the number of workflows that you require for your process automation needs, we sell it based on a workflow band. As a result, when you saw that slide that had all of the products in it, depending on the version, whether you're getting standard or enterprise, we bundle in all of that capability. So if you get enterprise, you get the capability of the workflow analytics with Hawkeye, the Nintex Hawkeye solution as well, and enhanced functionality. You can also deploy those workflows in any environment, whether that's on-premise with SharePoint, whether that is in Office 365, or whether that's with the Nintex Workflow Cloud. So it's a very flexible model. If you want to get more information on pricing and licensing, we've got the rough framework on nintex.com under How to Buy. That's a great reference guide to give you an idea of how the pricing and licensing works. And of course, you can work with your existing partner, or you can talk to us directly and we will help you sort it out. So I believe, Fitz, we have a couple of other questions here, and I think we have about probably time for one more question, and then we'll get back to everybody else on email for their other questions. So do you want to grab one of these, Fitz?
Oh, sure. Let's see. Does Nintex Mobile support ADFS authentication? If we didn't just add that, we will be adding it it's being worked on right now. We'll certainly log you on to a local SharePoint server or to an Office 365 organization, of course, or log you on to Nintex Workflow Cloud. But if you're using ADFS and all of that, yes, we are adding direct support for ADFS. If it's not ready as of the latest release, it will be ready very, very, very soon.
Okay.
Looks like several of your questions centered around the common theme of on-premises versus cloud. Make no mistake, we actually think that most companies work everywhere. Even if they live on premises and put most things on premises, they're using the cloud for some things. We have designed our array of workflow solutions to accommodate that. We assume that sometimes your workflow is going to be on premises, sometimes it'll be in the cloud, and it's best if they can all talk together and work as one solution. We designed for that kind of use case. If you live in one place, great. We are totally comfortable with you living all over the place.
Great. Okay, that's perfect. And we have some other questions that we will get back to the individuals asking them on email to make sure that everything is answered for you. So again, thank you everybody for your time today. Again, we've left a couple of resources there on the screen, and of course you can reach out to us directly with other questions along the way. Any closing comments, Jim?
I just want to encourage everybody that the future of work is automation, so don't leave this webinar without thinking about how you're going to move forward next week.
Awesome. All right, thanks everybody.